but again, I think cream rises to the top, as they say, and I think that Jaden Smith finally figured out after After Earth and Karate Kid, I'm just not that as good as my dad. I'm not good as an actor. Welcome to the 611 Films podcast. My name is David Groves, and with me, as always,
Neil McKay. What is happening?
Back again for another pod. A maybe controversial. It's been in the news. A topic.
Oh no!
A lot of people
controversy.
Are talking. Yeah, it's all the controversy surrounding Hollywood and the idea of the Nepo baby and how they're all taken over and nobody can get jobs unless you're bored out of a celebrity. And
are they suddenly taking over? Like, was this not the case for 100 years now? Or I mean,
yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, it's so funny that this is becoming, or at least it was in the news. I think everything in the news these days kind of pops up and it's something that we talk about for like a week or two. And then everybody's like, all right, now back to something else.
Yeah, I didn't know it was.
So we're a little late. Like we're a little late, baby.
I didn't know it was like a news topic. I know, weirdly enough, when we decided we were going to do this, I think a couple of weeks ago, Bill Maher did a bit on nepotism, and I was like, oh shit, now we're going to look like we're copying it. But so is it like in the news or something? Like I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jamie Lee Curtis was speaking out about it. Like, I don't know if it was from TikTok or like an Instagram, or there was something kind of just floating around with the whole like with actor, like, again, bringing up the idea that Hollywood is full of these kids that basically get jobs, and
is she saying?
Well, I mean, because Janet Leigh was her mother, famously.
Right. I mean, I was going to say she knows she's part of the nepotism thing. Right?
Yeah. If you've seen anything with Jamie Lee Curtis on a red carpet or interviews, she's very blunt and brazen and verbose about like, hey, shut the F up. Like, I've been doing this a long time. My work should speak for itself. And is there a leg up? Sure. But, if you can prove yourself in this industry, and I think doing a little bit of research before, I was kind of looking at the whole idea of nepotism because, we're both directors, producers, editors. Sometimes we're in front of the camera, but largely that's kind of our thing. And I was kind of like, where else is it? I mean, you can look at like nowadays, like a Brandon Cronenberg, who's done a couple films. He's David Cronenberg's son, or Sofia Coppola, a big one. But directing, producing, all those things, it's like we really only talk about it for actors and actresses, I think.
To a degree. I mean, I think...
because they're in the limelight for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the argument you can have, because we talked about, and okay, I mean, so basically what we're talking about is like, if you are a actor and your child is an actor, your child actor is going to have, your child is going to have a much better shot at being an actor, a successful actor, just simply because you were, and that's it. But I think that statement applies to anything. I mean, we had a conversation with our friend Ryan about this, and he was kind of, this is ridiculous. I mean, would you say the same thing about a plumber or a police officer? And it's like, well, I mean, it's the same thing in that industry. Like, my dad was a cop and my grandfather was a cop, and that kind of, you hear those stories, and it's like, yeah, because that's like the family business, so to speak. It's just, right. Yeah. It just doesn't come up with like the fame and fortune and all the stuff that everybody wants out of being an actor. So that's why, I think, people are kind of like, oh, nepotism and stuff, but it's all over the place. I mean, it's in politics, it's in modeling. Yeah. The one thing I think Bill Maher kind of got wrong on his little, and you can see it on YouTube, it's like from like late March. He was saying it doesn't,
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he was saying it doesn't exist in sports, and I'm like, come on. I mean, now don't get me wrong. If big time quarterback as a kid, that kid's not necessarily going to be a shoe in to be a quarterback like his dad was, but that kid's going to have advantages. I mean, look, there's a Hall of Fame wide receiver named Marvin Harrison, and his son plays for Ohio State. It's probably going to be like a first round draft pick, like one of the best prospects in the world. A lot of that's genetics and everything like that. And I'm sure he's just a great, he's going to be great wide receiver like his father. But And, you know, it's not guaranteed or anything, but I'm sure, I mean, he got recruited to Ohio State. I mean, he's got a coach for a dad. He's got the best coaches in the world, probably. He's getting that at a young age. I mean, there's an advantage. It's not a guarantee. None of it is, but there's definitely an advantage.
Well, and the idea of the meritocracy, like he was saying, it's sort of like this sports is still like you still got to. I mean, I think with the acting stuff, I think with that whole thing, he said something to the effect of, you know, the whole idea of this crazy town and Hollywood in general is the foot in the door. And that's what really spoke to me. It's like half this, maybe even more, like 80% of it is just.
He said, 80% is just getting in the door, right?
Being, you know, there's so many people that come, you know, by the truckloads in and out of this town. But for the most part, it's sort of like, just being able to get an audition. Now, I've also seen it too, where it's like some. Like Meryl Streep's daughter, like has her name changed, like she's not Streep, or some of them, like John David Washington, who was in Ballers, like kind of was going more for football and kind of fell more into acting, but he never really, like I didn't even know that was Denzel's kid until like, you know, he was in like Tenet.
Yeah, I needed you to tell me because I was like, I don't know who that is. So
he was in Ballers.
Nicolas Cage is a famous one. For like the Coppola name, you know. And
like I said, you know, we could use the Bill Maher clip of him showing like after like the last 50 years of Hollywood, like, you know, the parents and then the kids. So sure, it is all over the place. And again, I kind of look at it more too as like the acting world takes the brunt of it. Like no one's saying anything about the costume designer who worked on Wizard of Oz for years, like did that, and now their daughter is a costume designer for Disney shows. It's like, but it's part of the history of the family.
It's the same thing as like, you know, the plumber or the you know the I have a convenience store and I'm handing it down to my kid. It's like nobody's saying anything about that because it's just. That doesn't come
or the biggest issue that I've seen, or like the real big issue of nepotism, like the getting into different schools. Like your dad's a Harvard, Yale, Princeton alumni, and if dad buys a building or a new library, little Sarah, little Johnny, little, you know, Kevin might be able to now get into the school all of a sudden with subpar grades. Is George Bush not
laughed? That's why I laughed. I was like, there's no way he's getting into that school with his own intellect and his own power. Like, come on now.
Yeah. Probably like C average student, want to just party. And it's sort of like, that's the biggest, I would say that's the biggest gripe I have with sort of the nepotism. It's not just like, and sure, Hollywood actors, I mean, it's been around so long. I guess where I stand with it, or where I would come from, is I've just seen it for so much. And there's just nowadays, like, there's so much going on. There's so much film. There's so much TV. You know, every single day something's coming out. And acting, you know, I think another thing with Bill Maher, not to keep like going back to his thing, was like Vin Diesel could do it. So it's like,
yeah, no, I laughed during that.
Not to gripe about like actors, but I do think it has a very cushy thing to it. If you're semi decent, you could hold a TV show or hold a role.
Yeah, it's a funny thing about Bill Maher, and I don't know how close he is with his father or how much this had anything to do with it. But his dad was a news editor and radio announcer, so I'm sure some sort of public speaking in front of the camera or being able to talk on a microphone. I mean, you know, I'm not saying his dad got him his career, but I mean that's what I'm saying. You have a leg up when you have when your parents are like in a business and you go into that business. You're going to have, because you're going to learn those skills from a professional, and you're going to learn them earlier than a lot of people. So therefore, you know, it's an advantage. Right. So I just thought that was you know, an interesting thing. Now with the acting thing, I think a lot of, when we were having this conversation, there was like, you know, a text thread we were on. We were all going back and forth. Yeah. And the thing that I found interesting was that I think, you know, on one side you have the complaint that, oh, well, you know, so-and-so got that job because of their parents or whatever. And it's like, that doesn't mean you would have got it. Like, you probably suck. You know, you're like, there's millions of people out there that are trying to get into the business that have no talent. Not saying that celebrity kids do. I mean, some of them do, some of them don't. But That's not the side that I'm not like mad about that. I'm like, okay, yeah, you got lucky and you got a leg in the door or whatever. I think what bothers me is that sense of like entitlement or whatever that comes with the nepotism. Like if your parents were like, if you're just all of a sudden I'm handed a career as an actor and now you're successful and stuff, and then you go around saying stuff like about the struggle and this and I work hard. It's like, stop. Like, you don't know, like compared to somebody else who really did struggle, that's where I'm kind of coming from. It's like kind of,
right.
Be aware of what you're saying and don't sit there.
Yeah.
I mean, having
that self-awareness of just being able to say like, look, I did have like, I think somebody, I don't remember who it was, Lily Collins or Maya Hall. I read, doing research, I read somewhere a younger celebrity was kind of saying, look, it is a leg up, and I'm fully aware of that, and I don't take this for granted, and I try to make sure that, when I'm hired for a role or hired for the job, I will show up every day, know my lines, and not let it all go to my head. And I think, that's the type of thing that if they say something like that, that's sort of like, we can all kind of calm down on this whole topic.
Oh yeah. I got no problem with anybody like that. I think when I think of nepotism, I would go to, when I'm saying people just have no idea, somebody like Gwyneth Paltrow, who makes comments like, single parents don't understand what it's like to be away from their kids on a movie set and all this. It's like, what? Like, you're off in this like cushy trailer, like in France or something. You're away from your children for a month to make millions of dollars and spoil them and stuff. And you're like talking about like, the single, parent, middle-class parents and they don't understand, the struggle. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you're so tone deaf and you have no idea what you're talking about. That's when I think of like nepotism gone wrong. It's like, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
Like, you
sure. No.
You got into this business because your mom and dad were, actors and that kind of thing. So,
I mean, it's never going to change. Like, nobody's changing that throughout the rest of. And then again, too, it's like a lot of my ideas, and I've talked about this before. It's like Hollywood has its own thing, or like the studio systems of this or that. It's like so many people are just going to YouTube. They're going to TikTok. I mean, not to say like these people are becoming major stars, but at the same time, it's sort of like, yeah, but or like somebody that has a big following on another platform. I mean, they tried to do this with a lot of other bigger YouTubers and it didn't work as well. But I do see like that conventional, like the movie star that people have been talking about, like Tom Cruise, Will Smith, like he's still around, and maybe Will Smith not so much, but you know what I mean? Like that's sort of going away. It's about the project itself, not the actor.
I agree to some degree, but I do see. I mean, and I can't think of Will Smith's kids, for instance. They have what have they even done? And they have music deals, and their Twitter and Instagram is up the wazoo with followers and stuff. So there is. I mean, look at the Kardashians. Like, how they have a whole career based on what? I mean, just because, it's like there's going to be that you got an advantage or something, money, clout, whatever. You're going to find a way in there.
Well, again, I'll kind of go. And again, I'm not like saying devil's advocate for any, but again, I think cream rises to the top, as they say. And I think that Jaden Smith finally figured out after Earth and Karate Kid, I'm just not that as good as my dad. I'm not good as an actor. And maybe I should stop trying to be in movies. I mean, no offense to the kid, of course. I mean, but I do think like there are those people like that. The actors like a Maya Hawke, for instance, from Stranger Things, who I think is phenomenal, in the role, and can go on and do like Lily Rose Depp is in HBO show. And I remember looking up stuff like her and Harley Quinn Smith, like Kevin Smith's daughter. She had been in a couple things that he did, and she's just, you can see the difference in how good they are.
I was going to say, because I found her, I don't think she's done anything outside of stuff, like her dad's movies. And I found her to be incredibly mediocre in those things. So that is an example of like, people,
Right.
but it's like you say, cream rises to the top. You're not really hearing a lot of like Jade Smith or Harley Quinn Smith, like in anything. It's not like they got some role over somebody. I don't know. I mean, it's, I don't think, I mean, there's not a staying power,
Right. Yeah. The staying power, I think, is the biggest thing.
I'll give you like an example of somebody that is totally always dogged for being sucky and a benefactor of nepotism is Jim Belushi, because he's John's brother, who was, the Saturday Night Live and all Animal House and all that. And then you got Jim Belushi, and everyone always like, oh God, another Jim Belushi show, or he's in another movie. That guy sucks. And I mean, he's just for like 20 or 30 years, he's just had that thing like, oh, Nepo baby, this guy, how does this guy have a career? But I mean, I just always think of him as like, because there's not that many people that really suck that have the longevity. Usually they fizzle out. They get the
well, you look at that, and then but dying early definitely helps. You have a River Phoenix at his prime, and then Joaquin comes along and he's winning Oscars, and so it's like, but. And as much as I'm not the biggest Joaquin Phoenix fan.
To be fair though, with Joaquin Phoenix, he was in the business. Like he was already kind of established as a child actor before River Phoenix died. So
okay,
I guess I don't. Space Camp, that 80s movie.
Oh yeah, it was. I think we had that on beta like for a while.
That was back when he was Leaf Phoenix. And then he changed his name to Joaquin later.
Yes, you're right.
He wasn't like a star, but he was, he had a career before.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't think there's any right or wrong or like reasons with this. Like again, I kind of take the stance of, like you said, with our buddy Ryan, who's an actor and works with actors. It's like, you got to work that much harder then, unfortunately. Yeah, this is the business you're in. And it's still 1,000,000 to 1 without these people, without the Nepo babies. It's like you still got to put in the work and really go, and see it as a long-term, the idea of I'm going to go to Hollywood. If it doesn't work out in a year, I'll go back to the hometown. It's like, see, if that's the mentality, don't come at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Yeah. And he was the one I said earlier that, you probably suck anyway. He was the guy that said it. It's a great point. Yeah. It's like it's not like this Nepo baby's taking your job. Like you weren't going to get that job anyway. So 9 times out of 10, so, and that's, I think, why he kind of just rolls his eyes is because there's so many people that are like that are looking for the fast way in, or they don't do the work and then they complain, and it's like, and that's why we, the conversation was so interesting, because I was like, oh no, I totally understand what you're saying. And that's not really, I mean, if you got lucky and your dad was a this or that, it's like, okay, it is what it is. I mean, life's not fair, but I don't like that whole, like what it does to people. Like, when you get all the opportunities handed to you and then you start talking about things that you have it's like the Ricky Gervais thing at the Golden Globes. It's like, you're in no position to speak on, the millions of people in America. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Get your award, thank your God, and get the, So,
have fun, party it up, and,
and F off, so.
Right.
So that was kind of where I was coming from. And again, it's not just acting. I mean, it's politics. I mean, look at all the damn politicians out there.
Sure.
Because their dad and their grandfather was a senator or whatever. And it's like, come on, man.
Right. But again, like to wrap like stuff up with this again, man, I mean, I'm kind of like in the camp of, like I just said, I'm just in that camp where it's like, it's been this way for years and years. I don't really think it's going to change. I think Hollywood's going to change more and more anyways, with new media, with AI, with VR, with all this other stuff. I definitely just think that, no matter what, you still got to just kind of put in the work, put that stuff away, because if you dwell on it, if you dote on it too much, it just becomes a little bit too, seething, vitriolic, and then it's not about you, it's about this, and it's takes you out of the game no matter, like mentally too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And you can't just say, again, it's all oh, it's like who, I mean, it is kind of who you know and stuff, but there's so many, other factors. I mean, again, going back to the sports thing, I mean, it's genetics too. I mean, I
Yeah,
look at
right.
I mean, my mother was an artist and my dad was a writer, and it just makes perfect sense. You put that kind of together, and then you have a kid, and then that kid wants to be, a filmmaker. Like it's totally, oh yeah. And, it's just like an example of like, is that in my genetics? Just because, I'm interested. Like if they were both athletes, like I'd probably be into sports, it's just that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, of
you're
course.
just going to gravitate towards what kind of DNA you get flowed down to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and so if your dad is, or mom is like this fan, Oscar winning actor, well, chances are you got it in your blood too, a little bit. So,
right. Yeah, for sure.
So it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening. We're doing this more as a vodcast, a vlog, not a vlog, but we're kind of moving more into just keeping this on YouTube. If you like it, please subscribe. We've got all these other podcasts. We're working together on projects. More stuff's coming out. All that good stuff. So hope you enjoyed.
See you on the flip side.